Joe King walks out on stage and says,
Yes, hello, I'm Joe King, and I'm not joking, though I prefer to be called Juris Dr. King. I imagine, as I have an active imagination, that there must be some fans of Saturday Night Alive out there who are upset that we aren't still doing the show. What can I say? If writers Michael O'Donoghue, Tom Davis, and Herb Sargent were still alive, they'd certainly be in line with the strikers, as they'd want all the money they could get to pay for their horse. So I imagine that as deceased writers, they'd still be holding out for more money to pay for their dead horse. Okay? It just seems wrong to put out a sketch comedy show while the living writers are on strike. And as far as the strike is concerned, SNL alum Will Forte, as he was picketing in support of the writers, said to the media recently that one of the key sticking points in the WGA's negotiations with studio execs was namely a sharp decrease in residuals earned in TV. Will explained that writers used to get extra cash every time their work aired. That's on top of their going rate to do the job. However, in the era of streaming first programming, those residuals have mostly gone down the drain. Moreover, Will said there are fewer episodes per season being made these days. Whereas a regular season on cable or a network back in the day used to run 20-plus episodes, streaming shows now are much shorter, locking in at about 10 episodes a season or less. Okay? So we will try to stay on top of the scuttlebutt regarding the strike during this show, because we do want to get back to Saturday Night Alive. But in the meantime, we're going to try to have some fun during this hiatus. Okay, so anyway, yes, I've been telling a lot of stories from my time as an attorney. One such story involves a former client who was, according to psychologists, mentally unwell. Okay, among other things, this client, who was a self-proclaimed reverend, was 100% convinced that the world was being surreptitiously overrun with gypsies. That's right, not reptilians, not liberals, not conservatives, not aliens, but gypsies. This client further believed that due to the gypsy outbreak, that he and Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm sorry, I just don't feel right saying his last name. The client believed he and Arnold Schwarzenegger had to team up to rid the world of gypsies. Anyway, after the client's case was done, instead of saying have a nice life, I felt a little sorry for him and therefore gave him a ride home to what he said was his mom's house. Mind you, the client was in his 60s, but he said he lived with his mom, which, based on his beliefs about gypsies and Arnold Schwarzenegger, I didn't find too far-fetched. Okay, we get to the house, and it didn't appear as if anyone had been there for months. Okay, the grass was really high, and the house was locked. But luckily for me and my new friend, the garage, which was attached to the house, was open. So instead of saying have a nice life, I helped the client break into the house from the garage. Now, I was a little nervous I was committing a felony when we first got into the house. However, I did see a picture of the client on the wall, so I felt better. Anyway, after he got settled in, I left him and went about my day. Later on, I found out that he repaid my acts of kindness of driving him home and helping him break into his mom's house by reporting me to the Attorney Disciplinary Commission. His complaint to the commission was a 30-page manifesto about gypsies, and I was mentioned once about halfway through.
King walks off stage and onto another stage and sits in a seat behind the desk and says,
Now won't you please welcome our guest, the famed author and journalist, Hunter Thompson.
Thompson appears from behind a curtain wearing sunglasses, smoking a cigarette with a cigarette holder, and waves to the audience. Applause, applause, applause. Thompson sits down in the chair next to the desk. King lights up a cigarette and says,
Thank you for being here, Mr. Thompson.
Thompson, pleasure to be here. King.
Now, Mr. Thompson, we should tell the audience that we kind of gift a magi each other in that we both surreptitiously dosed each other with LSD backstage before the interview.
Thompson, great minds think alike. King.
Looking out at this audience on this acid, it makes me feel like I'm in the middle of a goddamn reptile zoo.
Thompson, don't steal my lines.
King. Very good. Now, why all the drugs, Hunter?
Thompson, they're fun.
King. What got you started on them?
Thompson, I was in San Francisco in the mid-'60s. And not that I wouldn't have stumbled into them eventually wherever I was. But they certainly were a part of the culture that I was a part of.
Okay. You ever run into the Grateful Dead in that era?
Thompson. Oh, sure. If the Grateful Dead were playing, I'd beat my way in with a fucking tire iron if necessary.
Okay. Very good. Now, switching gears, you were a big Nixon fan, right?
Thompson. I had and still have a visceral hate of Richard Nixon.
Okay. Is that right? Now, the thing is, I did some research, and you were at the Watergate Hotel the night of the break-in, correct?
Thompson. Coincidentally, yes.
Okay. If I were to posit that there's no such thing as coincidences, couldn't I further posit that you were there as Nixon's decoy in order to ensure that the break-in occurred?
Thompson. I suppose you could posit that, but you'd be a fool for doing so.
Okay. Well, why all the hate for Nixon then?
Thompson. Nixon was a crooked, skulking bastard, a darkly sinister figure, and was a master of the politics of fear and hate.
Okay. Couldn't you say the same thing for just about all politicians, though?
Thompson. Most of them, sure. But most of them don't make it to the White House.
Okay. Very good. Now, gonzo journalism. Does that have something to do with that Muppet gonzo?
Thompson. No.
Okay. Can you explain what it is, then?
Thompson. It's been said that it's a form of journalism where the narrator gives a first-person account as being part of the story.
Okay. And gonzo journalism was involved in one of my favorite works, Fear and Loathing Las Vegas, correct?
Thompson. Correct. Vegas was definitely gonzo journalism. Thompson and King each light up new cigarettes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Thompson, the acid you dosed me with is really starting to hit me.
Thompson. Uh-huh.
Okay. And I'm not really sure what to ask you other than if you could briefly explain the nature of the universe and why we're here.
Thompson. No sympathy for the devil. Keep that in mind. Buy the ticket, take the ride. And if it occasionally gets a little heavier than what you had in mind, well, maybe chalk it up to forced consciousness expansion. Tune in, freak out, get beaten.
Okay. Why is your mouth floating above your eyes now? What the hell is happening?
Thompson. I don't have time for this, man. Is this a serious interview or not?
Okay. It really isn't, okay? I can see my kindergarten teacher now, and she's admonishing me again for a fecal mess.
Thompson. What are you talking about? Good God, man, get a hold of yourself. King grabs his left arm with his right hand.
Okay. Reality is an illusion.
Thompson. Uh-huh.
Okay. You know what bothers me, Hunter?
Thompson. What's that?
Okay. When people say something's unnatural, okay, by definition, everything that exists is a part of nature. We humans have evolved from within nature, so everything we think or do has to be, quote, natural.
Thompson. That tracks.
Okay. But you always hear about things being unnatural, okay? We are nature experiencing itself. We are the universe experiencing itself. We are the very essence of existence, experiencing itself. So we have to be natural. Now, that doesn't make everything that is natural okay.
Thompson. Nature is neutral. It is neither good nor bad.
Okay, exactly, okay. But are we here to discover what about naturality that we find good and what we don't, and to eliminate that which is evil?
Thompson. Nature is bigger than you or me. Good luck ever trying to change nature and eliminating evil.
Okay. Okay, Hunter, I'd love to ask you some more questions, but I'm freaking the fuck out.
Thompson. There he goes. One of God's own prototypes. A high-powered mutant of some kind never even considered for mass production. Too weird to live and too rare to die.
Okay. Okay, I gotta go and get a hold of myself before I start playing bongos naked in the street. But tune into our next